Hi class. Today we're going to finish up consumption and savings and look at our comparative statics. We're going to do all the comparative statics. Basically, they're the same as what we've been doing in the past. We're going to change income and we're going to change prices. Only this time, prices include both interest rates and the price of consumption through time, which means inflation or deflation. So let's just review and look at resources in year one is equal to your income in year one plus your assets in year one plus the maximum size of the loan that you can obtain from knowing all of your income in year two, and your resources in year two are equal to your resources in year one plus your assets in year one multiplied by the interest you can earn on them plus the income you can earn in year two. And of course we look at consumption in year one and consumption in year two. And if we were to divide resources in year one by the price of consumption, we would get the maximum we could consume in year one. And if we were to divide the resources in year two by the price of consumption, we can get the maximum we can consume in year two. Connecting those dots, we get our budget line. Now remember, when prices are constant, that is, there's no subscript on the two prices, then the slope of the budget line is negative 1 plus r, which means the only thing to trade off in your consumption between year one and year two, aside from your preferences, is the price of money or the interest rate. So we know that this individual, let's just say they're consuming their income, or if we have assets, their income plus their assets. Anywhere down here, this person must be borrowing. And anywhere up here, this person must be saving. So let's pick up there. Oh, I turned blue. Let's go back to black and look at consumption in year one and consumption in year two, and just copy that same budget line that we had and draw in a well-behaved indifference curve, and let's say this person is at C1 naught and they consume C2 naught in equilibrium. Now let's say that interest rates increase for this particular consumer. Now what's going to happen with an interest rate increase is that if you are a saver, your maximum amount you can consume increases, and if you are a borrower, the maximum amount you can save decreases. And if we connect those two, this point right there is the point at which a consumer neither borrows nor saves. So that means this particular consumer, who's in equilibrium at C1 naught, has to be a borrower, because this point is Y1 plus A1. So here we have a borrower, and we can look at what's going to happen to this borrower as their interest rates go up. What will happen to their consumption in year one and in year two? So we know that the slope of the budget line has become steeper because negative 1 plus r now has a bigger r. So the slope is steeper. How do we identify final consumption? Well, we know that when interest rates rise, interest rates are like a price change. So there will be a substitution effect and an income effect. So let's draw a line tangent to the original indifference curve, parallel to the new budget constraint, and label this C1 star. And then let's do it in red. We'll find a new point and we'll call this C11. So the total effect is the movement from C1 naught to C11. The substitution effect is the movement from C1 naught to C1 star, and the income effect is the movement from C1 star to C11. Now, why is someone substituting out of consumption when interest rates rise and they're a borrower? Well, borrowing becomes more expensive. If borrowing becomes more expensive, they have to substitute out of current consumption to pay back their loan, and therefore we see a substitution out of current consumption. Now, what is it that we know about consumption over time when we lump the C's into a bundle of goods? What we say is consumption is normal. If interest rates rise, real income has decreased, and you can see that from the parallel move from that imaginary budget line to the new budget line. If income is a normal good and income decreases, that means consumption must decrease. And we can see for borrowers, when interest rates rise, they will consume less in year one overall. So there you have it, a rise in interest rates for borrowers. What other kind of comparative static can we do? Well, the easiest comparative static, and maybe I should have started there, but I didn't. Remember, R1 equals Y1 plus A1 plus Y2 over 1 plus R, and resources in year 2 are equal to Y1 plus A1 multiplied by 1 plus R, because if you save, you'll earn interest, plus Y2. And if we divide both of those over prices, you will get the budget line, or the maximum amount you can consume in year 1 and in year 2. So what happens if income were to increase either here in year 1 or here in year 2? Well, if prices are constant through time, we know that the slope of the budget line is -1 plus R, so that doesn't change, which means that if income increases regardless of the year, you're going to see a parallel shift out in the budget line. Here's a point of equilibrium in year 1. And I'll tell you that a well-behaved indifference curve is going to have a point of tangency so that regardless of when you receive your income, consumption is normal, and you will see an increase in consumption in year 1 and an increase in consumption in year 2. Now, we talked about this in class, saying if I receive a raise today or an increase in my income, how can consumption in year 2 increase as well? We said that that has to do with the marginal propensity to consume, which is usually between 0.6 and 0.7 in cross-section. What that means is if you were to survey anyone and their expenditures and give them an extra dollar today, they would spend between 60 and 70 cents of it and save between 40 and 30 cents of it for tomorrow. So there you have the comparative static of a change in income. Our final comparative static is going to be a price change. And we can have two different price changes. We can expect inflation or deflation. And let's say we have a well-behaved budget line. And if we expect inflation, we expect the price of consumption in year 2 to increase, or prices to increase tomorrow. And what that will do is it will change our budget constraint, to look at something like this, where the budget constraint rotates around the maximum quantity of the good whose price doesn't change. The price is not changing in year 1, and we will be able to purchase less. So we see a downward movement of that budget line if we expect an increase in prices in year 2. What is this going to do for consumption? Can you guess what the movement from C1 naught is to C11? That is the total effect. I have two indifference curves. I have two budget lines. Now, we know that prices are increasing in year 2. Can I decompose the movement from C10 to C11 into an income and a substitution effect? Of course I can. So I draw a line tangent to the original indifference curve, parallel to the new budget constraint. This new budget constraint is less steep. So the point of tangency on the original indifference curve, oh, that's very bad, sorry. It's going to hit here where the indifference curve has a less steep slope. Oh, sorry, folks. My hand just isn't working. C1 star says the substitution effect says I am going to substitute into current consumption because current consumption is now relatively less expensive because prices are expected to go up tomorrow, so I'll substitute into buying the goods today. But when I have any price increase, I have a decrease in real income. So this income effect goes in the opposite direction. An increase in prices decreases real income. If real income decreases and consumption is a normal good, I will see a decrease in consumption. So when prices increase in the future, I substitute out of current consumption. I have less real income, so I buy fewer goods. And in this particular example, the income effect was bigger than the substitution effect, and an increase in prices tomorrow actually decreased consumption today. Now, it all depends on how big the price increase is expected to be and what your preferences are. Let's see if I can do a little bit better with my drawing. And draw something that looks like this. Can you guess what just happened? Well, you don't have to guess. What happened is I expect prices in year 2 to go down. I expect deflation. And I can draw two indifference curves, C1 naught, and final consumption, C11, and say, what's happening here? Well, let's decompose this into a substitution and an income effect. So my new, or my, how do I find the substitution effect? Well, I draw a line tangent to the original indifference curve and parallel to the new budget line. The new budget line is steeper. It's the red one. And so my imaginary point of tangency, and I did that badly again, is going to say I am going to substitute out of current consumption because prices are expected to go down in the future. And here I have an income effect that says if prices are expected to go down, I have an increase in real income. Since consumption is a normal good and real income goes up, I expect consumption to go up, and actually that's in both years, but I'm only looking at consumption in year one. So ultimately, I have seen an increase in consumption today, even though I expect prices to decrease tomorrow. I substituted out of current consumption, but price decreases were so much that the income effect saying I have more real income, buy more, has caused me to purchase more in year one. That's a very interesting outcome, and again, it depends on the price change and your preferences. So there you have it. We've just covered all of the comparative statics, and just as with anything, when you look at comparative statics, you change one thing at a time, and we've changed income, we've changed prices of goods in year two, either expecting inflation or deflation, and we've changed the interest rate, either increasing the interest rate or decreasing the interest rate. And of course, any of these comparative statics will depend on the change in these things and your preferences. So I hope that was helpful, and study hard for the exam.